this house, Hanko himself came here to provide a house for them to live in. It was said that it was an instruction from young Master Roman, which moved Kevin to tears. At this moment, Kevin's father discovered a bruise on Kevin's cheek and thought Roman had beaten him. Kevin insisted that this was not the case, then told his parents everything, and then his parents told other people. For a noble to dare to slaughter people from another region just to protect their own knights, this was the first time they truly saw a noble who cared for their people. In addition, there is the story of Roman providing a house for Kevin's family, who spread Kevin's family's story far and wide. That's why now when Roman recruits, there are many people who want to join him. Hearing these things made Lucas surprised, first about the story of the Bloodfang group, then about providing houses to his subordinates. The Roman that Lucas knows is not such a person, because 2 years ago Lucas himself saw Roman making a fuss in the casino when someone else cheated him out of money. Much more interesting than Lucas wanted to check it out for himself. That evening Jonathan came to report everything to the Lord, advising him to stop Roman. If an individual formed an army, he was afraid it would lead to chaos, but Lord Dmitri left the decision to Roman. At first, when he heard that Roman attended the Barco family's party, he thought he was preparing to ally with that family, but no, Roman declared his opposition to the Barco family in front of everyone. That is more than enough for Roman to shape his own future. The next day, the recruitment was completed, everyone was present, just waiting for Roman to show up. One day before the military recruitment, Lucas got extremely drunk in a bar, but Lucas still couldn't believe it. There were so many people responding to Roman's call to join the army. Not only that, but from the names of the 3 people laughing at the next table, Lucas was sure that they were a C-class mercenary. Next, there were 3 people at the bar who, although not mercenaries, had fighting abilities that were not ordinary. However, Lucas still has some doubts. If they already have stable strength, why should they join Roman? People probably aren't as curious as Lucas. At this time, Lucas accidentally heard a conversation. There was a person who was a resident of the Lawrence area but wanted to join the Roman army. At first, he also wanted to serve his homeland, but after seeing Roman single-handedly slaughter that entire gang of Bloodfangs, he thought again that they probably wouldn't believe the story he was about to tell. But that day he saw Roman dragging the gang leader, covered in blood, to the front of the square. After witnessing that scene, he never forgot it, reaffirming it to everyone in the pub once again. That young Master Roman is not as weak as rumored, and this recruitment is a lifetime opportunity to become Roman's subordinate. Hearing all of this, Lucas finally understood. Roman had really changed and was no longer the loser he was 2 years ago. On the day of admission to the training area in Dmitri Castle, everyone excitedly agreed to meet up after the admission to go out for a party. As for Lucas, he is now very confused, not knowing what to choose. The answer will come after they see Roman's sword in the flesh. Right now, everyone is silent when Roman steps forward. Even though they didn't ask, they still consciously knew how to bow respectfully to him. It seemed like the rumors were true. The audition took place, but before that Roman had a few things to remind them. The Dmitri family member had no intention of living in this small territory. They will have to go everywhere, and if anyone wants to withdraw, they can return at any time. Chris stepped up to guide them through the first round of selection, where they would have to stand in a designated place for the archer to shoot 3 arrows that may or may not hit. But whoever does not move a bit when 3 arrows are shot is qualified to pass the first round. When the audition started, everyone else thought that this was just a psychological test, so they still bravely stood up and took the shot. But as soon as the second arrow shot out, it made everyone pale. It actually hit their legs. What Roman said was not a threat but the truth. After this case, they came here to become knights, not shooting targets. Chris continued to urge the others to come up, and reminded them one more time that if they were afraid of being shot, they could leave. Roman also shouted loudly and reminded them that only those who can stand after 3 arrows, even if they are hit, are eligible to become his knight. The night before the rehearsal, Roman selected 5 brave people and assigned them tasks. During tomorrow's audition, they will be hit by at least 1 arrow by an archer. The person doing this is an experienced archer in the area, so the areas being shot at will cause as little pain as possible. And their remuneration is an extremely large box of gold, so no one can refuse such a good deal. Chris looked but still didn't understand Roman's meaning. Why did he have to go to this extent? According to Roman, they cannot find brave people just by talking, they must at least give them mental challenges. Only those who dare to bet their lives on the entrance exam are qualified. Although their hit rate is only 1 in 100, most people are defeated by the fear of having to stand by and watch an arrow pierce their body. What Roman really needs is a person with a very strong mentality, always ready to exchange his life, not some newbie who is just a little dangerous and runs away. Only such people can get online quickly. As soon as they saw a performer's name being tagged, most people walked away, thinking why should they bet their lives on this test. Chris looked around for a while and saw that about 100 people had given up. Roman was forced to screen all of these cowards during the audition. The audition continued. Lucas still didn't give up and stood looking around. Seeing the guy who was the idol in the inn last night still trying to stay, even though his whole body was constantly shaking. He stood in position and started the test. The first arrow almost leaked and he almost wet his pants, but he was still determined to follow through to the end. This is the chance of a lifetime to prove your loyalty to Roman. By the second arrow, the thought flashed in his mind that he wanted to give up. Luckily, the third arrow came too quickly and slowly, just a little longer and he would have given up. The admission session continued like that. Except for the 100 people who dropped out, a total of 400 people took the test and only 120 people passed. Among these 120 people, there were people who were shaking like a leaf during the test, and there were also people who were not afraid of anything. For Roman, no matter what kind of person they are, they meet the standards. After all, they can suppress their fears. However, 120 is still too many numbers. That's why Roman decided to open a second test, choosing only the 30 most outstanding people among them. In terms of rules, it was very simple. Roman had prepared a lot of wooden swords for them. They will have to duel with Roman, and if anyone can last for just 1 minute, a scar-faced guy will volunteer to go first. He confirmed the rumor that Roman was the one who defeated the entire Bloodfang gang. His strength was no longer in question, but he still believed he could last 1 minute. But with the first blow, Roman already put the sword to his neck. Lucas was startled by Roman's extremely classy movements, both fast and light, predicting that the second round of selection would be much more difficult than the first round. The moment scar-faced Vulcan lost to Roman, everyone realized that Roman was too strong, but the test continued. They all thought that Roman had to fight against 120 people. Sooner or later he would get tired and then they would have a chance to pass the test. However, 1 hour later, there were 60 consecutive matches. These 60 people were completely defeated by Roman and he still did not show any signs of fatigue at all. By now, everyone has guessed Roman's intentions. He is too strong to stand by Roman's side. They also have to be strong enough to live the life of a hunter, not waiting for Roman to protect them. Everyone knows this is the only opportunity in life to serve a strong person, so they can reach the pinnacle of life. But they don't know how to last 1 minute against this monster now. Everyone pushed each other and refused to step forward, making Roman uncomfortable, reminding them that if no one dared to step up right now, they would all fail. Only then did Lucas draw his sword. Standing face to face with Roman made Lucas even more certain of one thing. This person is truly a dangerous person. Not only is he strong, but the murderous aura that Roman radiates is enough to make other people pee their pants. Roman Dmitri is truly a monster, and as he stated, such a strong person cannot hide forever in this Dmitri area. Lucas is sure that one day Roman will conquer this continent. The match started and Lucas was the one who rushed forward. Except for Vulcan, Lucas was the second person who dared to attack Roman. The others just defended. Lucas slashed a vertical line down and Roman stepped back to avoid the attack. Lucas then threw out a wooden dagger aiming at Roman's weak point. How the hell was he still able to block the attack? This made Lucas sweat as if he was fighting against a solid wall. But in order to last 1 minute, Lucas was forced to maintain the initiative and continuously attack Roman. This made Roman laugh, which wasn't bad at all. Lucas knew how to take advantage for himself, but Roman's intention to endure for 1 minute had already been read. When it was over, Roman rushed up and slashed a powerful blow at Lucas. Although he blocked it, it also made Lucas fly away. Lucas is a level B mercenary. He will never be able to advance to level A. Because he couldn't use mana no matter how hard he tried, Lucas would never accept defeat so easily. He learned countless things on the battlefield. Danger can always appear, so in order to survive, he must use all the advantages and resources he has. Lucas pulled out a sandbag from his waist and threw it straight at Roman's face as he pursued. This startled Chris. Before starting the test, Roman gave them swords and only asked them to hold out for 1 minute. Other than that, there were no rules at all. Even if Lucas did that, he wouldn't have. Anyway, when the sand got into Roman's eyes, Lucas jumped up and quickly rushed to pursue Roman. But when he looked straight into Roman's eyes, he saw a terrible image. Roman's eyes did not blink even though they were covered in sand. Lucas had no chance of winning like this. He put down his sword and surrendered. Before teaching martial arts to its disciples, the first thing they need to learn is how to keep their eyes open at all times. In case they lose concentration, just one blink is enough to lose their life. After the match, Chris brought water for Roman to wash his eyes, while Lucas stood on the side blaming himself for being so stupid. If he knew this would happen, he wouldn't have used sand. Lucas would have used every trick to pass the test. What a disappointing result. Roman didn't even get angry, which shocked everyone. Roman didn't get angry simply because he already knew what Lucas was planning to do. But Roman still let it go so Lucas could fight with all his might. The test continued and the people behind Lucas began to use everything they had just like Lucas. Although the rules do not prohibit foul play, as soon as they start to cross the threshold, Roman will no longer be merciful towards them. He kicked those who dared to do bad things straight in the face. Just looking at it made Lucas feel terrible, but he didn't surrender in time, and he would have been beaten like these people. The test continued like that until the 100th match. Except for a few drops of sweat on Roman's forehead, there were absolutely no signs of fatigue at all. Roman still maintained his steady breathing. This is also a skill of the demon style. When he was still in the martial arts world, there was a time when Roman had to fight for 3 days and 3 nights. That's why Roman's endurance is so impressive. After finishing the test, the number of people who passed the round is 0, but that doesn't mean there are no people who can continue. Out of 120 people, 30 will be chosen as the most outstanding people to join the ranks of Roman knights. That night Roman finished listing the 30 people who successfully passed the test. Lucas was also chosen as Chris somewhat confusingly. Lucas is willing to play dirty in the match and does not hesitate to surrender when he has no chance of winning. These types of people will be very dangerous for Roman when going to the battlefield. According to Roman, Lucas may be a coward who plays dirty to win. But while everyone has no concept of foul play, Lucas has a realistic and daring mindset. As Roman sees it, it is Lucas who shines the brightest on the battlefield. Then asked Chris why he thought Lucas would abandon his teammates on the battlefield just because of bad behavior. Chris was startled by this question and suddenly remembered what Mr. Jonathan taught: no matter how strong a knight is, he can die by those who attack from the darkness. Indeed, Lucas's decision to play badly was very realistic and Chris's vision was too narrow. There were 5 months left until it was time to go to the battlefield. There was still too much time. Chris wondered why Roman had gathered the soldiers so early. A few days later there was an official statement from the Barco family. Barco accused the Lawrence family of owing money without paying, giving them 1 week to hand over the land as collateral or they would invade the Lawrence territory with central permission. And Roman planned to jump into the dispute between these two families. That night at Lawrence's house, Flora dreamed about what Roman had declared and then suddenly woke up. Since returning from Dimitri Flora's house, she has never left her room, which makes the maids very worried about what is wrong with her. There are quite a few rumors surrounding this annulment. Most people believe that it was Flora who broke the marriage. I don't know what Flora did to make her fiancé break up like that, and they're also worried about the upcoming war with the Barco family. I wonder if servants like them will be caught up in this war. Flora sat in the room and heard the whole thing without saying anything. At this point, she only blamed herself for pushing the family to the brink of destruction. At first, she thought she was a smart person. She had completed an advanced course in the academy with extremely good scores, making her think she was a good child. But the truth is different. Flora realizes she is nothing without her family by her side. She didn't have enough confidence to face her father's trust, so she locked herself in her room like that. At this moment, Flora remembered that Roman could single-handedly defeat all the people in the blood and fangs of ice. The truth is, Roman can solve his own problems, but Flora can't do anything thanks only to her family's reputation and help. At this time, the servants brought food to Flora on time. Flora came out and announced that she needed to go to the study to see her father. Now she knows her father is trying to find help from other families. Flora is sure that no one will help them in this situation, just like how Roman single-handedly took down the entire Bloodfang gang. Flora realized that the Lawrence family also had to find a way to solve it by their own strength, with only 1 week left before the war would begin. The Lord had a headache and no family was willing to help them, because Barco had threatened to retaliate against anyone who dared to intervene in this battle. Lord Lawrence contacted the Gold Bank, investigating the accusation that they owed money to the Barco family. The Golden Bank has also started an investigation, but according to the servants, they won't finish it within a week. Either way, a war will break out. There was really no other way, but everyone else advised the Lord to surrender to protect the innocent soldiers, as well as retaining at least a part of the land rather than losing everything. At this moment Flora entered the room. Meanwhile at Dimitri's house, Roman also informed his father that he would jump into this battle. This made the Lord see that he was crazy, that war was authorized by the central government. In the worst-case scenario, it will be the Dimitri family who will take the brunt of Barco's attack on the central government. Roman immediately argued that maybe the Dimitri family was the strongest in the northeast, but the Barco family didn't think so and dared to put pressure on them all the time. And Roman couldn't let them be so proud. Roman declared to his father that he would participate in this battle with his own honor, and not borrow the name of the Dimitri family. That's why Roman hopes his father can watch over him. From now on what he shows is the path he wants to live. People's origins will never change, no matter how hard they try. Like Lord Dimitri, from a blacksmith he rose in one fell swoop to the position of lord of the most powerful Dimitri region in the northeast region. But even so, when he looked into the eyes of other nobles, it was not a look at a noble. His current life is more than enough, he just hopes that one day Roman will surpass him. When he looked straight into Roman's determined eyes, the Lord realized that Roman had changed so much, he was no longer the kid that made him worry every day. The Lord announced that he would let Roman decide. It's not too much an exaggeration when everyone knows that the blacksmith shop of the Dimitri area is the largest blacksmith workshop in the Cairo kingdom. There are about 30 smithies in the Dimitri territory and many blacksmiths. All doubts about the wealth of the Dimitri area were resolved when Roman visited the blacksmith quarter. Add to that the amount of iron ore behind the palace, which is always booked out for a year in advance. With this abundant amount of iron ore, everyone wanted it. For that reason the nobles of the northeast never dared to oppose the Dimitri family. Besides being afraid of Dimitri's wealth, there was also the problem of being cut off from the supply of weapons. For other families, this was a very serious problem, so Roman went to see the blacksmith master. Before that, Roman had asked for help from his father. He could recruit soldiers himself, but the weapons had to be really good. So his father tipped Roman off to meet Mr. Hendrik, who had been a subordinate of the Lord when he was a commoner. Entering the blacksmith shop, all the blacksmiths looked at Roman with contemptuous eyes, which was understandable because Roman had so many scandals up until now. Roman went to see Hendrik and he didn't care about Roman at all, but since the Lord had asked, he had to help. Show Roman a bunch of discarded equipment and take whatever he wants and quickly send him away. This makes Roman laugh, so this is the best of Master Hendrik. Hendrik was really irritated by being teased. He thought that if it weren't for the Lord's request, he wouldn't have dreamed that Roman would be able to get his hands on Dimitri's equipment. Roman pulled out a sword from the pile of scraps, raised it to the sky, and pointed out to Hendrik that this work was too flawed when it was made by experienced blacksmiths. With this sword, your soldiers can die at the hands of enemies, just because it is not sharp. In addition to the other armor, Roman picked it up. If it was an armor that could withstand a stab from an enemy, then it wouldn't be a problem to bear its weight. But this pile of trash made Roman angry. He understood that Hendrik despised him, so he gave him this trash equipment. However, the one who used it was not him but the soldiers. They confidently wore this thing to the battlefield and then died because of this pile of waste. Roman had politely asked the Lord to convey the word to Hendrik, but he had gone too far, so Roman announced it. You will consider this an act of disobedience. The moment the line between landlords and slaves becomes blurred, the class system will immediately collapse. As a subordinate, you must always listen to the orders of your superiors, and if you intend to act, you will be subject to appropriate punishment. Roman asked Hendrik one more time if his action of giving him this trash was an act of defiance against Lord Dimitri. If not, then I must give you a reasonable answer. Hendrik was blamed by Roman and just stood still and refused to be scolded, but by this time the other blacksmiths were also dissatisfied. Seeing that Roman was holding a sword, they quickly called for Roman to be held back, but Hendrik shouted to stop them all and then admitted his own fault. Sometime before Hendrik became a veteran blacksmith, he was blamed a lot. Because he arbitrarily made the sword when the master had not yet given Hendrik permission to do so, this made Hendrik very angry, thinking that the master was a blacksmith without teaching him anything. He only sent him to do some work in the smithy. At this time, Hendrik saw someone coming to buy a sword. But he didn't have enough money, so the teacher kicked him out. He sadly returned and felt sorry for him. Hendrik gave him his defective sword without payment. That was the first time Hendrik felt happy when someone used his work, but immediately after was boundless regret. The guy who received Hendrik's sword took on the task of escorting a merchant caravan. Nothing would have happened if his sword hadn't broken while fighting the bandits. This made Hendrik feel extremely guilty, as if he had killed him. From that day on, Hendrik vowed to never let this happen again. But what the hell are you doing now? Hendrik takes full responsibility for this time, so that Roman can punish him as he wants. But that's all Roman didn't blame him for, but reminded him to quickly get back to work. Hendrik apologizes to Roman, and as payment for this, he promises to provide Dmitri with the best equipment for him. Everyone quickly returned to work, and Roman stood behind and observed them for a while. Then Roman went out and Hendrik followed him. He reiterated once again that he had not forgiven Roman yet. The foundation of the Dmitri family was still blacksmithing, and Roman had ignored that. This time he agreed to help him because he was wrong, but he still hoped that one day Roman would be able to create a sword himself, even though it was just a waste. Roman laughed, then turned around and left, going to the warehouse where he used to practice. All the forging tools are available here, now let's get started. When he was in the martial arts world, Roman forged a sword for himself at the age of 18. The world was so harsh that he had to sleep all the time. Just woke up, until one day Roman was ambushed by his own brothers. The sword Roman used broke in that moment, but luckily he was still able to win. From that moment on, Roman personally tinkered with the forging formula, creating a suitable sword for himself before each battle. And now, before the war with the Barco family begins, it's time for Roman to prepare a sword for himself. Roman repeatedly hammered an action while using the same tempo and strength, a moment when one was completely absorbed by the objective thing. Roman lives in a world where only the strong can survive, but Roman never thought it was a bad thing, nor does he now. However, currently Roman is not strong enough to cope with each change. That's why Roman has to be very tough. Roman still doesn't know exactly how dangerous this world is. Roman uses the skill Flame Cannon, a type of martial art created by Flame Demon, that uses the burning power of fire to quickly store mana. It was the most optimal thing for his current useless body. His lungs and internal organs would be damaged if Roman used it too often. But right now Roman has a desire for the strength that can confront all events. Meanwhile, in Lawrence territory, Fleur stood in front of the elders and presented the current situation. They are really in trouble. Other families refuse to help them, and in terms of military strength, the difference is too obvious. She also knew that this conversation table was planning to surrender, but Flora believed that was not the perfect choice no matter what price they had to pay. Lord Lawrence pounded the table in anger at this statement. He believed that there was no need to sacrifice the lives of innocent soldiers. Flora found a lot of information from the Barco family. They took advantage of all their relationships to borrow a large amount of money from the gold bank, without having to mortgage anything. This means that the interest that Barco must bear is extremely high, and in order to repay this debt or interest, they are forced to successfully invade the Lawrence territory. There was only one way: they had to fight back to the end. Lord Lawrence was silent just now when Flora entered the room. He had high hopes for some of her speeches, but it turned out to be just her immature statements. Flora never finished saying that the Lawrence territory won't just be entrenched. Flora calculated very carefully that they had to give up all agricultural output within 1 year. Burning the fields to store as much food as possible, and if they could just hold out until winter, Flora believed they would win. It can be said that Barco was able to borrow a large amount of money from the gold bank thanks to its relationships. But the longer it lasts, the higher the interest will be. They will put pressure on the Barco family with this debt when next winter Barco cannot successfully invade Lawrence. At that time, they were a piece of cake for other forces to tear apart. Everyone who heard them was extremely surprised. They had never thought of this plan. Lord Lawrence quickly urged everyone to prepare. This will be a battle for survival. They are determined to protect the bloodline of the Lawrence family, and if even the wall collapses they will support it to the end. Meanwhile, Roman also completed his own sword. It was the sword that best suited him in its current condition, and Roman named it Fire Dragon. The war with the Lawrence family officially began. Barco led his soldiers to surround the Lawrence family gate. With Lord Barco's authorization, the mustachioed man read out the announcement loudly, asking everyone in the Lawrence region to surrender or fight fairly with them. The form of war will be at the discretion of the Lawrence family, and Barco promises to follow through on any decision. Lord Lawrence stepped forward and shouted loudly at them. He investigated all the debt records to see if it was just a fabrication the Barco family made up to declare war, and he had no reason to bet people's lives. Lawrence declared that he would not follow any conditions, he would resist to the end inside this castle. The war began and Barco's soldiers quickly rushed to approach the city wall. They tried to climb up the city wall under the dense rain of arrows from Lawrence's army. After hearing the intelligence again, Lord Barco was extremely angry. He thought the war would end in just 1 hour, but now it went against his expectations. The soldiers also discovered that the Lawrence family had prepared very carefully for this war. They dug a ditch to prevent soldiers from approaching the city wall. Along with the number of arrows fired without hesitation right from the start of the battle. Based on these things, it was enough for them to guess that the Lawrence family had received aid from a certain family. Lord Barco was angry. He couldn't understand what the hell had happened in the past week. In fact, he thought Lawrence would surrender to retain as much territory as possible. But they chose to defend themselves even if the soldiers' blood had to be shed, so Barco had to play another card. He knew very well what kind of person Lord Lawrence was, as he was willing to sell his daughter to the Dmitri family. On the battlefield, Barco's soldiers quickly retreated. As expected, Flora defeated Barco's army and was confused when he could not persuade them to surrender. This made Lawrence burst into tears. He could not believe that his daughter had grown to this level, along with an apology for imposing Flora's marriage on the Dmitri family. He announced that from this moment on, all decisions will be completely left to Flora. Suddenly there was a loud explosion. Flora quickly ran back to see the situation. Barco didn't give up, they just returned to the barracks to get more toys. The thing they used was called fire. A siege tool that uses magic. Each shot costs a lot of gold. But Barco is so willing to play with it that Flora is starting to panic. There are only 2 ways to counterattack. One is to use a magical weapon as powerful as fire, and the second is to leave the city and destroy the siege machine. Both methods were impossible, making Flora helpless. Should she surrender right now when the maid rushed over? There was a magical call from Roman asking the maid to relay the message to Flora. That he had a way to help the Lawrence family cope with the current situation, asked Flora to personally answer the call. Flora quickly made a video call with Roman and asked exactly what method Roman mentioned. Roman also directly said that he has his own grudge that he wants to repay to the Barco family, and in the near future he will attack the Barco family. And if the Lawrence family promises to comply with all of his plans, Roman affirms that he will help the Lawrence family deal with the Barco family. As for helping, it is very simple. They need to be a little sacrifice so that Roman can onto the stage. Roman swears on the honor of his name that he will do his best to help them, as long as they trust him. Flora thought very carefully. She was sure Roman already knew what their current situation was. That's why he made this proposal and Flora had no other choice. Flora promised Roman that as long as he didn't touch her family, she could do anything she wanted. In addition, Roman wanted to ask them to help him find an excuse to join this battle. Because Roman and Flora's engagement was cancelled, they needed a reasonable excuse. Flora still didn't know how to find a reasonable excuse, so Roman asked Flora to suggest the name of the Barco family's eldest son. Flora just needs to report him for harassing her. If Flora did so, Roman would have an excuse to participate in this battle. But the price Flora would have to pay would be that her noble honor would be diminished. But Roman believes that if Flora dares to give up that honor, she will have the opportunity to save the Lawrence family from destruction. If Flora was harassed before the marriage was annulled, it would prove that she was still Roman's person. And he never forgives anyone who dares to touch him. Right now she heard the screams of the soldiers trying to defend the city wall, when Barco's group had successfully punched a hole in the city wall. They had to quickly fill that hole before they could flood inside. Flora has no time to hesitate anymore. She promises to do everything Roman asks, so you should kill all the Barco bastards. Outside the castle, Lord Lawrence continuously urged everyone to get into position and defend until the end. Suddenly, an assassin climbed up the wall. He rushed straight to attack the Lord. Luckily Flora had an accurate arrow to save his father. She then asked her father to open the citadel to confront Barco's group head-on, revealing to the Lord that Roman had agreed to help them. What they need to do now is to attract the attention of Barco's group, so that Roman can go behind them and destroy the entire siege tower. Roman stood watching from the woods behind and ordered Chris to stay in position. This made Chris a bit confused. If they were any slower, the Lawrence family would lose. Roman doesn't care if the Lawrence family loses, because his goal is only the Barco family. Instead of caring about the lives of people he doesn't know, Roman chooses to protect the lives of each of his teammates. On the Lawrence side, Lord Lawrence sent his army to confront the Barco family. The army that defeated Burge was the one who welcomed them. They were so strong that the soldiers were scared and ran away. Flora tried to urge them to guard and try to lure them away. At this moment, Roman appeared on the battlefield. War is the moment soldiers have to bet their lives. There will be many incidents in their first battle. And if they can survive, Roman promises to help them have a new life, but in the end, their willpower is what helps them survive. Before going into battle, Roman clearly read the plan to everyone. Their purpose was to ambush Barco's army from behind and destroy their siege tower. Roman didn't expect much from their first battle, so he decided to lead everyone in sweeping away all the enemies in front of him. Their job is just to follow behind and clean up the remnants, but once again their main job is still to destroy the siege tower. Lord Barco discovered the Roman group rushing to the camp, but he was not afraid at all. "What the hell were you thinking, bringing a few soldiers here like that?" He left the soldiers behind to welcome them and then left. Roman rushed straight ahead of the knights. In the martial arts world, everyone knows that the devil is always the pioneer in every battle. With his invincibility, everyone is afraid of facing the devil. Because if you stand in front of him, there is only one way to die. There are many questions that arise. Why do angels and demons always have to be the pioneers? The answer is only one: the strongest person takes the lead to destroy the opponent's spirit. Roman rushed straight up to attack them. The others also followed Roman as closely as possible. The target of this attack was right in front of them. Roman ignored the trivial soldiers and rushed straight to the siege machine. The Burj mercenaries had already discovered him. His mission this time has many risks. The fate of the mercenary group is in trouble. And he was forced to personally kill Roman to receive the huge reward from the Barco family. Roman fought him. This guy was already famous on the continent, unlike Lucas, who was just a B-level mercenary. This guy can use aura at level A, but that's all he can do. He can only withstand an attack from Burj without Roman's face changing. This startled Burj, followed by a fierce counterattack that made Burj pale. Roman was too strong. Just exactly 5 seconds was the time it took a level A mercenary to fight against Roman, which shocked the entire battlefield. The other mercenaries under Burj lost their captain like a snake lost its head. None of them dared to risk their lives to avenge their captain. The angry Lord Barco quickly sent troops to meet Roman. But before long, the siege machine was already in front of Roman's eyes, a magical product that did not exist in the martial arts world. This was the first time Roman had seen this thing. He applied his power to the sword citadel, and then in one fell swoop the siege machine was destroyed. Roman then shouted loudly and announced that he had destroyed the siege machine for the Lawrence family to receive information. Believe. Flora hugged her face and cried in disbelief. Roman had actually done what he promised. Under the collapse of the siege machine, the Barco army lost their key weapon against the Lawrence family, so they had no choice but to retreat. In this battle, Chris used aura differently than before. He tried to condense mana into the sword like Roman did. As a result, Chris's mana consumption was not much, even in a situation where Chris had to fight to the death. At first, when he asked Captain Jonathan to accompany Roman, everyone in Chris's teammates laughed and thought Cree was crazy. But until now, Chris is sure of one thing: his choice is absolutely right. He is getting stronger day by day. Chris retracted his sword and turned to look at the others. Everyone was exhausted from trying their best to chase Roman. But fortunately, thanks to that effort, no serious casualties occurred, which is the reason Roman chose them to be part of his night team. That's not all. There is still one more reason for them to survive, because in front of them is a monster that goes against all laws and is ready to protect them from death. Their mission was completed. Lord Lawrence opened the city gates to welcome the Roman team inside. All the people lined up on both sides of the road to cheer and thank hero Roman for saving them this time. Lord Lawrence stood in a corner regretfully. From the first time he met, he knew he was not an ordinary person, but to be able to destroy the siege machine himself was beyond his imagination. It's such a pity that if it weren't for a mistake, he probably would have become your son-in-law. But that was already in the past. Lord Lawrence quickly ran to greet Roman. Entering Roman's castle to meet Flora again, Flora first apologized to Roman when she did not complete her mission as a bait. But Roman still ignored that and saved the lives of the Lawrence family. Once again, Flora wants to sincerely thank Roman. And to repay her for saving this life, Flora hopes Roman will make it clear during the meeting. Flora assured that no matter what his wish was, she would help Roman fulfill it. Entering the meeting room, the elders were discussing plans with Lord Lawrence. They thought that after this, the Barco family would no longer have a chance to attack them. That's why a request for peace is best for both sides. Hearing this made Roman immediately appreciate it. The Lawrence family are just herbivores. At this moment Roman spoke up. Currently, the Barco family is burdened with a huge debt. Their only option is to invade the Lawrence territory, and that will not change even if Roman destroys their siege tower. They were the ones who started this war. Countless soldiers of the Lawrence family fell outside the battlefield. We have to take revenge on them, the Lord knows that, but they don't have enough manpower to fight them anymore. Roman smirked that there was only one way, which was to organize a duel between the two families. This is a match to select representatives from two clans. The organizing committee will be from the central government, will also be the judge for this competition, and the two clans are forced to follow the final results. In the past, it was still possible to do that in hand-to-hand combat, but as Lord Lawrence saw, it had recently deteriorated. It's become a war between relationships and power. Their opponent is the Barco family, which has ties to the central government and holds a huge amount of gold borrowed from the bank. I don't know which expert he will invite to fight them. Roman will give them a sure guarantee that they will win. No matter what experts Barco invites, Roman will go to battle as a representative of the Lawrence family. And he was confident that he could win, but if he won the first match and lost the second match, it would be 0. That's why Roman planned to let Chris compete in the third place. He was sure he will win. Roman asked him to decide quickly and then turned to look at Flora. She immediately understood that this was Roman's wish, so on behalf of her father, she accepted Roman as the representative of her family. With the consent of both sides, the duel has been approved. The battle will take place in 1 week. That day has finally arrived. The judge of this competition is from the Enter Judge Center. Before starting the battle, he reminded everyone again that no matter what the result was, they had to accept the result. Then Enter asked the two families to announce their fighters. Roman turned to look at the Barco family and then whispered to Lord Lawrence to change people to fight. The Lord still doesn't quite understand. Didn't they already decided a week ago? Roman understands, but the Barco family is currently saddled with a huge debt, but he is very relaxed. It seems like he has found a master who is sure of the straight part. In order, Roman will be the first to fight to ensure victory, and Chris will be the last. But now we have to change. Roman will let Chris play the first match, and he will play the second match to face the trump card that the Barco family has prepared. The duel officially began. Chris's opponent was Knight Yanso of the Barcos family, a 3-star aura knight. And Chris is just a 2-star knight. Chris's reputation is not normal. At one time he was called the genius of the Northeast, but he was only a 2-star. How could he compete with a 3-star? Chris remained extremely calm to become stronger than he was forced to perceive danger, which was the reason he left Jonathan's team and followed Roman. When the match started, Yanso rushed to attack Chris. He immediately jumped back to avoid it. The first time he faced Roman, Chris realized one thing. No matter how strong the opponent is, just need to aim at the right opportunity once to win. Chris just dodged, making Yanso angry. He emitted an even more terrible aura, making Chris turn pale. There was no way to avoid this move, but right now Chris remembered Roman's teachings. Releasing mana outside to show off prestige is not a good way. Chris concentrated all his mana into the sword to confront Yanso head-on. He actually defeated a 3-star knight. A 2-star knight can defeat a 3-star knight. This is so crazy that no one can imagine. Even Lord Barco never thought of it. He let Yanso in the first match and his favorite card in the second match just to end this in 2 turns. But it doesn't matter, he lost a ton of money to invite the card. He will definitely win. The second match started with Barco's representative coming on stage. He introduced himself as Homerus. This surprised everyone even more. He was a swordsman who had already reached the 4-star level, ranked 39th on the continent's rankings. The swordsman rank originates from the Valhalla Empire, which was a holy land where swordsmen fought and died with honor. Swordsmen across the continent risked their lives to reach Valhalla just for the chance to join the ranks of the strongest swordsmen on earth. Those who win will be recorded. Their names will be preserved in documents that will be passed down for generations to come. This used to be the culture of Valhalla. After the Valhalla Empire expanded its authority, this culture spread to the entire continent. The ranking of swordsmen was also chosen by Valhalla himself. Lord Lawrence was now completely pale. Unexpectedly, Barco could invite a 4-star level swordsman to represent him. There's no one in this Cairo kingdom who doesn't know his identity. He traveled around the kingdom enjoying the joy of confronting strong people, so people gave him the nickname Wandering Swordsman. There is a rumor that Homerus faced off against the 30th ranked swordsman to reach this position, the 4-star level he has only just reached. But with this strength, how can the Lawrence family win? Roman stood to the side and sneered. The four-star swordsman was very interesting. During the past week, he had collected countless information from the Barco family. But there is no information about this guy. It seems like the Barco family has hidden this information as a trump card to lead them to victory. Roman boldly stepped into the ring in the same way that his opponent hid his strength, so the people here did not know how strong he was. Flora quickly ran out to stop Roman and asked him to give up the match. The opponent was beyond their control and there was no reason for Roman to risk his life like that. Homerus also noticed Roman at this time. Roman's steady gaze made him a bit uncomfortable. Roman pushed Flora's hand away. He didn't like to explain too much, so he remained silent and watched him express himself. This is an opportunity for Roman to test the strength of a four-star swordsman that cannot be missed. Right at the start of the match, Homerus rushed forward at an amazing speed, but Roman was still able to dodge, making him very impressed. Roman, on the other hand, seemed annoyed that this guy was looking down on him without using his full strength. When it's over, the four-star swordsman is just like that. Roman hoped he could block his next move, but Homerus didn't even have time to react to the move and died. Homerus agreed to represent the Barco family only because the guild asked him to. Never could Homer have imagined that he would be defeated at the edge of the kingdom like this. Everyone watched in silence at the scene. A four-star swordsman was slashed to death by Roman in just one move. Roman turned back to look at his body. Maybe he was a strong man but he was too arrogant, that's why he had to die. In the world of martial arts, there is never such a thing as disrespecting the opponent, always fighting with all our strength because they never know what kind of opponent they are fighting. Roman turned to remind the referee to quickly announce the result. Lawrence's territory was filled with other people sweating. And Chris gasped in surprise when he witnessed Roman's strength. During the time Chris fought Roman, he was sure Roman couldn't win against Homer during that time. But in just a short time, Roman's strength has increased to this level, it's unbelievable. Chris had no idea how long it would take to get over Roman anymore. With Roman's victory also sealing victory for the entire Lawrence family, Lord Barco trembled. It was all over. He lost a large amount of money to invite Homerus to become his representative. He was a four-star swordsman different from other ordinary swordsmen, but how the hell could Homerus lose in just one move? This made him think that the guild had already sent a fake Homerus, and there was still one more match left according to the original calculation. Barco thought it would be over in just 2 matches, so Barco brought out the nameless knight Benson as his representative fighter. At the party held earlier, he was the one who tarnished the honor of the Barco family. This is his chance to atone for his mistakes. Benson walked onto the field and saw him. Kevin immediately asked Roman to let him fight. In this world where big fish eat small fish, defeat means death. Even if Benson is an unknown knight, it's still a bit difficult for Kevin. Maybe Kevin wants to prove his worth. Roman agrees while Benson is shaking on the field. I'm just a nameless knight. He doesn't have much fighting ability, so why the hell would the Lord appoint him as a representative fighter? But if you've been selected, you have to do your best. Seeing Kevin step onto the field surprised this guy. He smiled happily and thanked the gods. With this, he had a chance to win. Entering the match, Benson did not forget to kick Kevin, so why not dream of revenge? Kevin did not care much and declared to him that you are Roman's sword and you will never be defeated. Benson rushed forward to attack Kevin. He bent down to dodge it and tried to stab Benson in the neck, but he read Kevin's position and kicked him straight in the chest. This attack was strong enough to make Kevin vomit blood. The difference in strength was so great. Chris still didn't understand why Roman let Kevin go into battle. At this rate, Kevin will die, but no matter how much Benson fights, Kevin still stands up with the will to take revenge on this trash. Since the day Kevin had the courage to cut off his arm, the demonic spirit had taken root inside the boy. And in this moment it has begun to awaken, the demon inside Kevin's soul. A series of thoughts appeared in Kevin's head. Benson rushed to attack him. Kevin jumped to the side to avoid it, then held his head, not understanding what the hell was going on in his head. Only this time, Kevin's mind was completely invaded. He has a desire to become the sharpest sword next to Roman. More than Chris, he craved power, craved Roman's trust and recognition. Kevin's activated ghost attacked Benson at breakneck speed, stabbing his sword straight into his armor. But that was still not enough to kill him. Benson was startled and quickly swung his sword to counterattack. But somehow, even though he was hit, Kevin still didn't stop. At this point, Benson was really scared that Kevin had gone crazy. Kevin put all his strength into Benson's chest. He finally defeated him to everyone's surprise. Kevin didn't stop there and repeatedly stabbed into his corpse. His blood splattered everywhere, This horrifying scene made everyone who witnessed it tremble. The duel officially ended with an absolute victory for the Lawrence family. This rumor began to spread, both real and fake, but most people praised Roman's achievements. Nowadays, wherever I go, I see people discussing this issue. Lord Barco must be very upset right now. After declaring war and then being defeated like that, his family will no longer have any face. In addition, there are stories told by the soldiers who witnessed it. The fact that Roman single-handedly rushed straight into the rear of the enemy army and slaughtered them all. Roman is truly a hero of the Lawrence family. Meanwhile at Barco Castle, the Lord is not sure what to do about the official dispatch demanding interest and debt from the gold bank. In addition, compensation was paid to the guild leader because he let Homerus lose his life. During the past time, other families have flattered Barco too many times to count, but now why do they all suspect it? Barco placed all the blame on Roman. If it wasn't for his involvement in the battle, the outcome would have been different. What Roman did was unacceptable in the nobility. This would be the last chance to save Barco. A few days later the Lord held a meeting with many other nobles. Now that they knew what situation Barco was in, they didn't want to hear much from him, so they urged him to quickly get to the point. Barco placed all the blame on Roman. Barco's battle with Lawrence was to repay the ancestral debt and was accepted by the central government. Roman's participation in the battle was unacceptable. Other nobles also began to respond. Barco had succeeded in his purpose, now all the blame was placed on Roman. He just needs to wait for Dimitri's family to compensate him. Right now, when Roman entered the room, everyone here must be very dissatisfied with him, that's why he personally will solve it for them. When Chris learned that Roman was going to Barco, he vehemently objected. There was no way Lord Barco would leave him alone. Roman just smirked after this incident. He and Lord Barco were already sworn enemies, and once they start, there must be an end. Roman was forced to leave to mark the end of this incident. Roman stood calmly in front of the meeting wondering what kind of identity Barco used to create his current position. Barco also immediately accused Roman of violating the rules of the Kingdom of Cairo, when he had no right to dare to participate in his battle with the Lawrence family. Now, just because of Roman's stupid actions, Lord Dimitri will have to endure all the criticism from the Eastern nobles. Roman let him finish explaining everything before it was his turn. Speaking of status, he previously had a marriage contract with the Lawrence family, but now it was cancelled and asked about the reason for the annulment. Roman pointed straight at Barco and accused his son Anthony of being the reason why he broke off the marriage. Roman did not hesitate to tell the whole process. The name Anthony set him up with his cousin. Then forcing him to annul his marriage to the Lawrence family, Lord Barco angrily pounded the table, saying that it was something Roman had made up. Everyone knows that Roman is a fool. To hide the truth, he dares to say anything. Roman laughed. He knew exactly what he would say, so he had already prepared a second reason. That's the fact that his son Anthony harassed his fiancée, but is this true? Roman let everyone ask Flora on their own. Roman had previously fallen into the trap because of Anthony's lies. Now you will use exactly what he did to you to return everything. Roman declared to everyone that participating in the battle was not the honor of the Dimitri family. But for his own sake, he now wanted to ask them if he really had no qualifications to participate in this battle. Lord Barco had only now turned pale. Roman had a perfect excuse to join the fight. He could only try to buy more time. Barco sighed and sent Roman back. The situation was so clear that he would personally investigate later. Of course Roman couldn't let him buy any time. You gave him two options. One is to bring Anthony to take full responsibility. Two is to let his entire family suffer the consequences, threatening him if he doesn't make a choice now. Roman will return and tell his father everything. Until then war will break out again, and the Barco family will surely die. Barco had no choice but to apologize to Roman, promising to let Anthony kneel and apologize to him. Roman laughed. How could the person who committed the crime decide on the punishment? He was the one who gave him the punishment. With a duel, Barco returned to report to Anthony. He cried and begged his father to save him. If he had to duel with Roman, he would surely die, but Barco had no choice. Anthony is the eldest son of the family. His fate is already tied to the family. Now one is him dead, two is the whole family has to die. Barco has no choice. The duel took place and Anthony was trembling on the field. He was so scared that he had to beg Roman to go easy on him, using the excuse that they were once friends. Roman didn't waver at all but pulled out his sword, making Anthony turn even paler. He screamed and begged Roman and promised that if only he spared his life, from now on Roman would be his master, spending the rest of his life apologizing to Roman. Apologizing? Roman laughed. How is he going to apologize? Currently, the Barco family still owes a huge amount of money to the gold bank. At this point, the relationship with the central government cannot help him clear his sins. Roman declared that the Barco family was finished. There was no reason for him to forgive someone who had trapped him. Roman stabbed his sword straight into Anthony's chest. When he was still in the martial arts world, Roman had to fend off attacks from his brothers. Although he was lucky to survive, from that day on he always had to be wary of attacks from other brothers. At this time, his eldest brother Baek Hoyeol appeared to show him where he was wrong, which was not knowing how to compromise with others. From the moment Roman saw others as his enemies, he only wanted to destroy that person. Then one day Baek Hoyeol was sure that problem would turn against Roman. Roman looked up at his eldest brother. He was truly a powerful and altruistic man, ready to defeat his enemies and take them under his wing. However, Roman chose to crush his opponents. That was his purpose in life and how he survived from the bottom of the demon cult. Death is the way to stop the throat forever. Roman killed Anthony. This is the death that no one wants. But he deserved to take this responsibility. Lord Barco cried and ran up to hug his son. Roman just laughed and said dying in a duel was so normal. Roman didn't care what he blamed him for. From the moment Anthony dared to target him, he was no longer his friend but his sworn enemy. This is the end for those who dare to target Mr. Roman, to declare clearly. Then he turned around to remind the pale nobles. If anyone still fawns over the Barco family, he will destroy them all. After finishing his work here, Roman immediately left, not forgetting to mention Barco's name, that from now on he would monitor how he lived. And will attack again every time he is weak. Everyone turns pale. Lord Barco really touched someone he shouldn't have touched. A few days later, under pressure from the gold bank, Barco was forced to flee, then he died unexpectedly in the forest. The powerful Barco family in the northeast of the kingdom has ended. Roman returned in a bloody suit. Seeing that made Hans very worried that he would continue to put himself in danger. Roman reminded him again that he was your man. Roman lives by trampling on many enemies so that their blood flows into rivers, but there is one rule that Roman always follows. That is protecting your teammates. A teammate is worth more than hundreds of thousands of enemies. And Roman always tries his best to keep his teammates from falling into danger. Although the story of the Barco family's demise is still very controversial, the Malok family still held a party. The Malok family's wife, Helena, happily organized this party to annoy other nobles who had flattered Barco, and also to affirm her family's position as always loyal to the Dmitri family. At this time, the Dmitri family's wife arrived. Everyone quickly ran to welcome Rihanna. Rihanna is Lord Dmitri's wife. She often interacts with noble ladies to build relationships for her husband. With her incredible political talent, sometimes even Lord Dmitri has to humble her. Rihanna stepped up to speak first and thanked everyone who attended this party. Because they were also from the same region, she wanted to understand them better, as well as reacquaint themselves with families that did not share the same goals. The ladies of other families were startled. Rihanna was threatening those families who dared to follow the Barco family, as well as showing her generosity to give them a chance to join her side. At the party, Lady Helena mentioned her daughter Veronica. She thought her daughter was very suitable for Dmitri's Roman. After all, Roman is already 25 years old, it's time for him to start his family. The other ladies of the family also began to jump into the fight. Rihanna silently observed them, as well as remembering her son. For the past 6 years, Roman was still considered a nuisance to all nobles, being the eldest child but not having the right to succession. However, Roman's potential as a 4-star knight has beaten all those possibilities away. Now a bright future is waiting for him. It's understandable that every lady wants Roman to be their son-in-law. This is when Roman went from being a nuisance to being an outstanding person. Rihanna stopped everyone. Roman was already deeply hurt. So instead of following her family's wishes, from now on, Rihanna wants to let Roman choose his own life partner. Meanwhile, in the Lawrence territory, Flora still blamed herself for being too weak in the war with the Barco family. She thought she only needed to last until winter to win. But everything happened so fast that the Lawrence family almost lost. But luckily Roman appeared in time to save the Lawrence family. How could Flora become a person like Roman? Thinking about him made Flora blush. All over, Flora is now curious about what kind of person Roman is. Even if it's just a little bit, she wants to meet him again. But there was no reason to meet again. Right at this moment Flora discovered her cousin Sylvia. She quickly ran to ask the Lord why the hell Lawrence wanted to hold a party at Dimitri's house without informing her. Lord Lawrence, after the battle with the Barco family, officially hired Flora. And from now on, he wants to let Flora live her own life, not forcing her to do anything for the family anymore. Flora immediately realized that he wanted to reconnect with Dimitri through Sylvia, so she took the responsibility to follow her instructions. Meanwhile, in the Valhalla kingdom, the swordsman-ranking priest Wheelas heard the news. Roman defeated a 4-star knight, which made him very curious to see for himself. The party was arranged for the evening. The ladies of the families had come to visit Dimitri a while ago. Sylvia was also present here, looking at the scene in the family, making her exclaim that it was as gloomy as rumored. This is the area where blacksmiths live. It is so gloomy, but there is one obvious truth. Whether in 2D or here, aesthetics is something that is always needed, but at Dimitri there is no such thing. Flora takes Sylvia to visit her father, Lord Lawrence's younger brother. He settled in the capital as a merchant. Compared to the capital, Dimitri is just a rural area. At this time, the whole group discovered a group of blacksmiths heading here. Because they were all noble ladies, everyone was afraid that their skirts would be covered in dust. And they also hate showing off dirty people like that, but not Flora. She discovered Roman walking at the back of the group. Hans quickly ran to stop Roman. He couldn't let Roman go into the mine, there was too much dust in there. Hans took out a towel to wipe Roman continuously. Seeing him keep calling Roman young master, the other young ladies were startled. Realize, he is the person they need to meet today. Looking closely, they see that Roman is so handsome, much more handsome than they imagined. In addition, the strong body is truly delicious. There is a rumor that Roman has lost his right to succession, but currently Roman is working in the mines, proving that he is gradually regaining his position in his family. Sylvia reminded everyone to quickly come and greet him. Meeting each other before the party would be an advantage for them. Sylvia volunteered to go first. Greeted Roman with compliments for him, but Roman only stayed once and then turned and left. Hans quickly followed and advised Roman to rest. There was a party tonight and Roman didn't care. He will not associate with those who are not worthy, but those who dare to disrespect his family's blacksmithing profession. Dimitri's roots are iron mines, diligently digging it with all his sweat and effort, then creating the best quality weapons. Roman has spent too much time having fun. It's time for him to also feel the hardships of ordinary people. Meanwhile, at the training ground, Chris was still diligently training soldiers. After the war with the Barco family, Roman's strength aroused everyone's will to be loyal. They have learned a lot of his fighting methods, and now Chris is correcting them little by little. So Roman has an army loyal to him, but for him that is still not enough. These people only have a little combat experience. What Roman needs is an elite team. This problem is a bit difficult to create an elite team. It requires financial resources and human resources. Roman still does not meet any requirements. Roman then called Chris out, preparing to teach Chris a new sword technique. Chris was different from the others. He had enough experience and was able to learn advanced swordsmanship even though it was a bit difficult. But Roman still believes that Chris can understand it. The move that Roman is about to teach Chris is called Lightning Break. A sword move that is extremely fast, and its creator is a sword saint. That night at the party, a handsome Roman entered the party, making the noble ladies' eyes go cross-eyed. They quickly ran to greet him. Sylvia also greeted Roman and became curious. Why does a noble person like Roman have to work with minors? Then ask herself how to marry a wonderful husband like Roman. Roman just smiled and answered all their questions. After a while, Roman was so bored that he went outside to get some fresh air. At this moment, Flora appeared and approached him to talk. She thought Roman didn't care about these social relationships. Normally, Roman doesn't attend this party, but this time it was different. All the guests were invited by his parents, so as their son, Roman still needed to appear a little. In addition, the first time Roman and Flora met was at such a party, so it was not surprising. Flora laughed. As expected, she was right to come to this party. The more steadfast Roman was, the more curious she became, wondering what kind of life Roman had to live to be able to maintain such principles. Then he asked Roman why he was a minor. As an heir, Roman had nothing to do with those things. Roman asked Flora in return how she always made the Lawrence family flourish like today. Everyone thinks Lawrence is successful because of its fertile land, but that's not true. Lawrence succeeded by selling and exchanging goods, then reached his current position, which is also the reason why Lord Lawrence's younger brother became a merchant in the capital. Flora felt all sweaty listening. What Roman said was so accurate. Even Flora, a member of the family, only recently learned about this. Continuing to talk about the Dmitri family, their origin as miners and ironsmiths. Without the miners working day and night searching for ore, there would not be Dmitri as prosperous as it is today. Roman chose to go mining with people so he could understand their hardship, and he also believed that it was the duty of a person named Dmitri. Standing here for long enough, Roman asked permission to leave first and Flora froze after hearing his speech. She decided that meeting Roman was indeed the right choice. A few days later, Flora left for the capital. That was also the time when the Lawrence family's flower left the cage to visit things outside, and the Dmitri family could dig for ore for another 10 years and their mine would never run out. As for Mr. Hendrik, he recently heard the news that Roman came to work at the iron mine, but now there is no more news. Speaking of Roman, half a month ago he worked at the mine. Veteran miner Morkan was very upset when he heard that Roman was coming to